I get a little caught up back there. Forgive me, Kay. Ooh, hello, gorgeous. Where have you been my whole life? Give me some of that love.
You're shameful.
Oh, shameful. I'm lovely, not shameful. Ha! What does she think she is, calling me shameful? You know, guys, you know how girls are, right? She loves me. She just don't know it yet. What are we doing here tonight? You guys know? Oh, doing this Jesus thing, right? Because if you're at a retreat and you're a youth, the answer is always Jesus, right? I got that. I got it. Hold on here. I got that. Bam! What about that? Yeah, that's the answer to every question, right? I got it. Jesus. Boom. All right. Oh, I forgot. You need that thing called a Bible hug. I've been in church my whole life. I know how this works, right? And you just pray and you crack it open and you say, wow, got to turn it upside down, sorry. You crack it open, let's see, abracadabra, bam! Ah! Now this is how God speaks to us, right? This is how we do it? Wow! Did you see where that lady went? Why did she call me shameful? I'm not shameful. I'm a good guy. Did you guys see? I have trophies. I even dropped one over here. I win so much, I just get tired of winning. Right? I'll set that one there. You guys could take a little of that in, you know? That's why I told you. She loves me. She just don't know it yet. We'll get there. But I wonder, what did she do with that thing? Did you guys see her? What? Ouch. Shameful? Who is that? Oh! That's shameful. Wait, she looks just like me. That's my daughter? Wait a minute, though. If that's my daughter, do you see what it says next to it? It says she's shameful. She is everlasting disgrace. That's not what I want for my children. I wonder if this Bible that they've been yakking to me about has anything to tell me about that. Okay, we're going to read our Bible where it opened up, right? What's this? Hebrews chapter 12. Let us run this race. Let us run with endurance the race that's set before us. I've been running this race, and it's hard. I told you I've been getting caught up a little bit, right? I've been caught up in some stuff. And it's kind of messing me up a little bit. This race isn't so easy called life. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. God, I've been trying. And yeah, I look good. I got the trophies. I got stuff. But I need help. I'm messed up. What does it have to say here? Look unto Jesus? Well, what does it mean that look unto Jesus? Hebrews 12:2, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged. Oh God, I'm weary. I'm discouraged. Look to Jesus. I wonder what this little numbers in the middle of my Bible has to do with this looking unto Jesus part. You guys look there with me? Because I'm a little confused right now. It's telling me to look unto Jesus. It's telling me to go to Hebrews chapter 4, verse 14. Seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weakness, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in the hot time of need. What? Jesus can sympathize? He can understand my weakness and what I'm going through? But I thought Jesus was God. But wait, he's a man. Oh, do you think Jesus liked girls the way I like girls? I really like girls. Excuse me, I'm sorry. You mean he understood that type of weakness that I have? Oh, man. You guys ever got caught in this one? This cheating? I told you I've been getting caught up. You think Jesus understands that weakness? What it's like to want to lie? Because that's easier, right? Your teachers give you all this homework and you're supposed to do it in one night. Whatever, right? You think Jesus understood that? Dang, this one's hard, right? I get caught in this one a lot. This lying, my mama caught me the other night, right? Guess what else I like besides girls? Oh, I like my money, right? I got my money on my mind and my mind on my money. Woo! And I lied to her and I told her, Mama, I was looking for a stick of gum. Oh. I don't want to talk about this one, but I do get caught up in some of that stuff. You know, as I've been getting caught up in some of this stuff, it's just really been causing a lot of hurt in my life that I've been carrying around. You know, sometimes I wonder, God, are you there? Do you really care about me? Do you really understand what I'm going through? I carry those things around all the time. I don't know about you. Maybe you guys are good. But when it says here, seeing that we have a great high priest who passed through heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, hold fast to our confession, for we have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weakness, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Wow, he must have been some type of dude. If he was tempted with all this stuff, and he didn't do it, wow. That's a dude right there. I don't know if I could do that. But wait. It says here in verse 16, it says, Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in the time of need. God, I've been trying to do this a lot on my own. I've been attending church since I'm a long little guy. And I've just been walking and, I know the Jesus thing. But I don't know that I've ever come to your throne. I don't know that I ever felt good enough to come before you and ask you for help. I just figured I do this stuff so bad, so as long as I hide it and nobody knows about it, that I'm good. But I never thought about coming to your throne for your help. I just figured, I deserve this. All this stuff I've been doing, all this hurt that I've gotten, I deserve it because I chose it, right? But my daughter don't deserve any of that. I don't want her to have everlasting disgrace because of me. I want to come to this Jesus. I want to seek his help. I want, if anything I deserve, if anybody deserves anything, I deserve punishment. Yeah, I lie, I cheat, I do all the stuff. I'll face it up. I do it. I deserve to be punished. But it's here telling me that he's willing to give me mercy. That means not giving me what I deserve. And on top of that, it's saying that I could find help. Maybe I just haven't been paying enough attention enough in church to understand about this Jesus that this Bible's talking about. Because I didn't think he wanted to help people like me. But my daughter, that's my heart. She don't deserve this. So if I can go to this Jesus and I can receive mercy and I can receive help, I want it because she don't deserve that. She don't. And if I don't change, she's not having any hope to change herself. Jesus, help me. Help me. I don't want my kids to go through what I'm going through. To practice the habits and the behaviors that I have. Do any of you understand what I'm talking about? If you don't know who I am, my name's Ian. I'm a high school teacher. I get it. I've been there. I've grown up in church since I was a little guy. I was acting there, but some of that is not acting. That's real life. That's real life for me. These are thoughts that I've had. And as young people, I want to ask you, as we run this race of faith, it's not something that's easy. It's not for the weak. It's for somebody who's willing to stand up and take a challenge. And to change and to grow. And can I tell you, change is hard. And can I tell you, some of this stuff that's been passed down to me, I can tell you it's almost impossible to change by yourself. And here, when I look at this, and it says, running this race, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who the joy set before him. What joy? Endured the cross, despising the shame. Have you guys ever looked to Jesus? My first challenge you to this morning is, if you know what I'm talking about, can I encourage you this morning or this evening, young people, to look to Jesus for what? Hebrews chapter 12 says he sits at the right hand of the throne of God. Why would you look to him? Because he has all authority and the power to change your life. And it says this in Hebrews 7 verse 25, because he continues to be a priest forever, he is also able to save to the uttermost those who come to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. Why look to Jesus? Because he's not dead, he's alive. And he sits at the right hand of the Father, not chilling. What's he doing? He's interceding, he's praying for you. It says he can save to the uttermost. Or you want to switch it to the guttermost. And he's an ever-present help in time of need. Youth, have you ever looked to Jesus to help you with your circumstances, with the things you're getting caught up in, that you're trapped in, that you're addicted to? Have you ever thought to look to Jesus? It says he was without sin. It's a mistake just to look at Jesus as an example and go, well, I guess I can't do it. I might as well give up. Because he did it already. He's perfect. Can I ask you, second thing I'm going to ask you to do, can I ask you to consider Jesus? When you grow up in church hearing the name of Jesus all the time, sometimes you forget what it really means, what it really looks like. Can we look at what this means? When it says consider Jesus, right? If I consider his life, maybe I can understand a little bit. If you're with me, it says, for consider him who endured such hostility from sinners against himself. Back in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 7, it says, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with vehement cries and tears to him who was able to save him from death, and was heard because of his godly fear. Would you guys consider Jesus Christ? Would you consider that as he sat at the right hand of the Father, the creator of the universe, he did not have to come down here. Would you consider Jesus' humility? Being the most important person in the history of mankind, he gave up everything because he's seen that there's a problem. He's seen people like me, and he's seen people like my daughter, and he says that is a problem. I am the author and the finisher of this faith, and I am going to humble myself so I can finish this job. Would you consider Jesus? When it talks about he cried vehement tears, not only did he walk here on this earth, but when it talks about his vehement cries and tears to him, who was he praying? In the Garden of Gethsemane, he was crying out, and he was saying, God, Father, Abba, Papa, if there's any other way, take this from me. And he even took his boys, right? Peter, James, John, says, guys, come with me and pray, lest you enter into temptation. Right? And what was Peter saying? Peter was like, man, I got you back, Jesus. If anybody's going to let you down, these guys are all punks. I'll never let you down. Not me. And Jesus said, Peter, come pray with me. What's Peter doing? Oh, such a good nap, right? Peter's sleeping. He wants to stand with Jesus. When times get hard, he can't even stand with Jesus when it's time to pray. And Jesus didn't just pray this once, right? Jesus prayed it 3 times. And what did he say? Father, take this cup from me. Did you ever consider that Jesus did not want to deal with this? Did you ever consider that Jesus had desires? That he had dreams? That maybe he had hopes for a future? And he's sitting there and he's crying in the garden. Would you consider his emotional state? What he was giving up and what he was asked to give up for people like me and for people like my daughter. He was being asked, and he knew what the question was, is will you give up your life for people like them? And 3 times he begged, he says, if there is any other way, take it from me, please. It says he was even dripping blood. Did you ever consider that Jesus was human and that he didn't want to go through this? Just like you and I, we don't like discomfort, right? We don't like pain. We don't like suffering. Did you ever consider that Jesus had the same feelings and emotions? Did you ever consider that he's like, well, God, that's their problem. Why do I have to give up my life for them? Did you ever consider that he was tempted and he didn't give into it, but did you ever consider that he's tempted to be like, not my problem? But Jesus, it tells us here, if you read on in Hebrews chapter 4, as he's crying out, it says, to him who was able to save him from death and was heard because of his godly fear. What? He was heard. He's sitting there begging God the Father, Abba, if there's any other way, take it from me. I don't know if you ever read the end of the story, but this dude got killed. How did God answer his prayer? How did the Father answer his prayer? Oh, wait, you forgot the second part. But not my will, but your will be done. He had a second part of his prayer that he was saying, God, I don't want this. I don't desire this. But not my will, but your will be done. And God answered the second part of his prayer. He said no to the first part of his prayer. There is no other way. You are the only perfect one. You are the only one that's come down to this earth and walked sinless. You are the only way, the truth, and the life. You have to go. You have to do this. And I will answer the second part of your prayer. My will be done because I love people like them. And this problem of sin and death needs to be taken care of once and for all. His prayer was answered. I don't know about you, but I don't know that I could pray that kind of prayer. Oh God, heal my mother, right? Oh God, help me on this test I didn't study for. I have a lot of prayers, but that second part, I don't know that I want to pray that second part of the prayer because if God's will kicks in, I already seen what happened to Jesus. Woo! That's rough. But we read on verse 8 of chapter 5. He says, though he was a son, yet he learned obedience by the things which he suffered. Did you guys ever think about that? Did you ever consider that Jesus learned what it meant to be obedient? You're like, oh, wait up, that's shocking. He's God come to earth. Well, what does he know about obedience? You're right. He wanted to know what it's like walking in your shoes. And although he didn't fail at the task of obedience, he had to learn what it's like to be obedient to the Father and the will of the Father and to do those things that he had no desire to do at that moment as he's praying in the garden, that he was wishing for another way out. Have you ever considered that Jesus learned what it meant to be obedient in the most difficult circumstances in life? When his body and his flesh was saying, do this, you want that. And everybody else, even Satan, was like, just bow down and worship me and I'll give you everything. Did you ever consider that he was tempted, but he learned obedience? What it says through what? Through the things that he suffered. Have you ever considered, after that time of that prayer, have you ever considered Jesus? Have you ever considered what he went through? Not only were they talking trash about him, but they were straight up doing the most shameful things to him. Did you ever consider the shame that Jesus endured? Have you ever thought about it, or is he just this guy in your Bible that died? How many of you have ever had somebody spit in your face? My goodness. God help me if somebody spit in my face. Right? You'll rile me up real quick. That was shameful that they did this to this man that did nothing to them. Have you ever considered Jesus, that not only did they spit in his face, but they punched him in the face like a punk? Did you ever consider the shame of their mocking him and putting this crown of thorns upon his head and saying, "Oh, King of the Jews"? Did you ever consider how shameful this was for him? Did you ever consider how shameful it was to be naked in front of all those people and be stripped of all your clothes and to be beaten in front of people? And not only that, for them to then go after you're beaten, spit upon, punched, hair pulled from your face. Have you ever considered how shameful it was that they went and played dress up with him? They put a little purple robe, scarf around him. You ever consider how embarrassing that was? I don't know about any of you men, but if I went and put a little purple thing on you and put you naked somewhere, how embarrassed would you be? Have you ever considered the shame that Jesus went through? And not only that, if it wasn't enough that these acts were shameful enough, he went on the cross and he said, "Father, I'll take their shame too. All this stuff that they're embarrassed of, that they don't want anybody to know about, I'll take it too. Put it on me. I'll take their shame. Put it on me. Because this got to be dealt with." C.S. Lewis wrote, Charles Spurgeon spoke boldly to Christians who could not bear the shame that comes from the world for following Jesus. He said, "Yet you are a coward. Yes, put it down in English. You are a coward. If anybody calls you a coward, you would turn red in the face, and perhaps you are not a coward in reference to any other subject. What a shameful thing that it is, while you are bold about everything else, you are cowardly about Jesus Christ. Brave for the world and cowardly towards Christ." Wow, when I read that, I was like, ah! God, you weren't ashamed to go through this or to take on my shame and my family's shame. I don't want to be a coward. God, teach me. God, have mercy on me. God, help me. Have you ever considered the endurance of Jesus Christ? Man, this guy went through a marathon of punishment, buckled under the weight of his own cross, only to be helped by Joseph of Arimathea. Did you ever consider the endurance this man had to go through all of this? Suffering before the cross, suffering during the cross, and suffering at the cross. Did you ever consider what kind of endurance that takes? I don't know if any of you are athletes, if you're marathon runners, but there's a point in your run where it gets hard. It gets grinding. Your muscles are burning. Your legs feel like quitting. Or if you're lifting weights, there's that last rep. You're trying to get up and you're like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. Did you ever consider the endurance of Jesus Christ? Enduring the suffering, enduring the shame, learning obedience through all this suffering. All for what? Well, if you look back, it told us in our passage. It says, who for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame. Who's his joy? You and I are the joy that was set before him. If you ever want somebody to do something difficult and tough, set a goal in front of them. You know what his goal was? Was you right there. Do you see it? It was you right here. This is what he was talking about. That you were his joy. And he looked to you and your children and the people that come after you, and he says, this is the joy that was set before me. This is worth all the pain, all the suffering, all the endurance for the joy set before me, that they might have everlasting life. He goes on in chapter 5, verse 9, and he says, having been perfected, he became the author of eternal salvation to all who obey him. Wait, he's the author of salvation for who? Did you guys hear that? All who obey him. But God, I need help. I've tried and I failed. Young people, there's a point where you give up in something because it doesn't work, right? Have you ever heard the thing? Keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's the definition of insanity, isn't it? Some people want to be the author of their own salvation. That they got tough, right? And they stopped. That cheating. I'm going to stop that. Only when times get hard to go. Come back here, I need you. He's not asking me to be the author of my salvation. He's already done it on the cross, and all he's asking me is to obey him. Can I ask you to consider a third thing? I've asked you to look to Jesus because he's your source of help, of mercy, and of strength. You heard that scripture, right? I can do all things through what? Christ who strengthens me. He's not asking you to do it alone, young people. He's asking you to look to him. That he could save to the uttermost. That he could pray for you on those things that matter. And can I ask you, if you've looked to Jesus, and now that we've considered Jesus, can I ask you one more thing to do? Can I ask you to imitate Jesus? turn with me real quick, just to the right. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 32. Same book, chapter 10, verse 32. Understand this group, the Hebrews that he's writing to, we're going to read about what they've been doing to when he says, running this race. I'm going to help you understand what kind of race they were running. And maybe you can identify with it. Look with me, Hebrews chapter 10, verse 32, as I ask you to imitate Jesus. It says, but recall the former days in which you, after you were illuminated, you endured great struggle with suffering. Partly while you were made a spectacle, both by reproach and tribulation, and partly while you became companions of those who were treated. Do you understand these people that he's writing this letter to were suffering, that they were going through, and they were doing it happily when they first accepted Jesus Christ? Can I tell you, as you walk along in your faith, do you ever grow weary? Do you ever grow discouraged? Right? And things like this, you're wondering, Ian, what is this? The altar of permanent sacrifice! I see some of you are looking, so. Oh, hey, I'm kind of thirsty. Can I ask you to consider, young people, in suffering, when trying to follow after, looking to Jesus, considering what he did and what he went through for you, as you step forward into the world and you get discouraged and you get tired from the suffering that you do and your endurance is low, what does the world offer you? It offers you these things. Says, if you give me this, you can have this. Ta-da! Kind of white, right? Woo! If you do this, I will permanently love you, right? Whoosh! Sacrifice it, baby. If you do this, you will be popular. Woo! Throw it on there, sacrifice it. Popularity. Woo! Love me, love me, love me. If you do this, everybody will approve of you and say, "Atta boy, good job." If you do this, you're going to be rich forever. And you learn that they say, it's fun, they said. You have a good time, they said. You'll laugh, they said. But can I tell you, it's a facade. This is not the altar of permanent sacrifice. These things are not permanent. They are temporary. They don't last. And what are you being asked as you're discouraged and weak? What are you being asked to sacrifice and to burn up on this altar? Are you being asked to sacrifice your virginity in exchange for some love? Because they say it'll be good, they say. You'll enjoy, they say. It'll be the best time of your life, they say. I will love you forever, he said. Are you willing to sacrifice your reputation on the altar of this temporary sacrifice for popularity? Because your friends said, just do it, it'll be funny, they said. Whoosh! There goes your whole reputation with all the teachers and your parents that had any bit of respect for you. What about your health? Oh, just smoke it, they said. Just drink it, they said, right? It'll be fun. Whoosh. You sacrifice your health. You have cirrhosis of the liver. You have HIV. You have AIDS. You have herpes. You sacrifice your future. And you sacrifice your dreams on the altar of the temporary sacrifice. Young people, can I encourage you? Do not sacrifice the permanent for the temporary. You are created in the image of God. And you are meant to live for eternity. Now you have the choice where you will do that. In shame and everlasting disgrace, or in joy and everlasting life. Yes, Jesus died and he went to the cross. Yes, he humbled himself. Yes, he learned obedience. Yes, he endured the shame. Yes, he endured the cross. Yes, he endured all that the sinful people did to him. That you might have a choice. That you might be set free to have a choice. But just because I've been set free doesn't mean I can't continue to act like I'm still in bondage. He goes on here and he says, verse 34 of chapter 10, "For you had compassion on me in my chains," this is Paul speaking, "and joyfully accepted the plundering of your goods." What? These people were robbed and they joyfully accepted it? What's wrong with them? He says, "Why? Knowing that you have a better and enduring possession for yourselves in heaven. Therefore, do not cast away your confidence, which has a great reward. For you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise." You know what, young people? Sometimes it starts with taking your mind off your money off your mind, and start putting your mind where Jesus put his mind. And that was on the will of God. What is God's desire for me? What is God's plan and purpose for my life? That's what I want to know. That's where I want to put my thoughts. Not in this stuff, because this stuff has led to all of this bondage. And he gives you a choice to lay aside everything that so easily ensnares you. He says, click, click. It's unlocked. What will you do now? I died on the cross. What will you do now? The chain's been unlocked. Will you still sit like this? Oh, this is just who I am. I'm a lying, cheating thief who loves money and women. Oh, I can't help myself. He said, click, click. It's done. What you going to do now? Sometimes when a person dies and leaves an inheritance, it never gets to the intended heirs. Jesus died leaving an inheritance, and he ever lives to make sure his people receive it. As Spurgeon said it, he died and so made the legacy good. He rose again and lives to see that none shall rob any one of his beloved of the portion that he left. Young people, he's not dead and gone. He's dead, rose again, sitting at the right hand of the Father, praying for you to ensure that you might receive your inheritance. And you have that choice to say, you know what, God? I'm done with these lies. I'm going to lay this stuff aside. know that I can't lay it aside. It's hard. I'm all wrapped up. Oh, wait, I forgot that other one. Oh, wait, Jesus, you're not done with me yet? The Lord, I'm praying, you're freeing me, you're releasing, you're making sure I can receive that inheritance. But God, I still got this hurt. I still got this doubt in my life. God, help me. And he says, come here. Mijita, come here. This is my will for you and for the generations that come after you. You are my joy. He endured the cross, despising the shame for the joy set before him. Young people, I ask you tonight, as the worship team comes on up, will you consider Jesus? Will you consider how great a person he was to come down here for you? Will you consider all the suffering that taught him obedience? Will you consider the shame that he went through on the cross for you today? And will you understand that he is not dead, that he is not sitting in a tomb, but that he raised? Once again, would you consider Jesus lest you become weary and discouraged? Can I tell you, some of you are weary and discouraged today in your faith. It doesn't matter how long you have attended church, how many years you've grown up, whether this is your first retreat or not. If you become weary and discouraged, can I ask, have you taken your eyes off of Jesus Christ? Have you stopped considering the cost that was paid for your sin and your shame, that you might inherit everlasting life? Young people, where are your minds? Where is your focus at? Is the world got you bought in to the altar of great sacrifice? And you're so bound and hurt by all that brings into your life. See how easy it is to lose? I've already lost my focus of what is God's will for my life today. He didn't do all of this so he could put you on a nice little shelf and say, oh, look at my little nice little person there. They're so cute. They don't sin anymore. Oh, good for them. Oh, look at, oh, I got another one. Oh, so cute. What is God's will for my life? What is his purpose for me? What does he desire specifically for me? I can tell you, step one is to free you from this life of shame and death and bondage, and to give you an everlasting joy, to give you a hope. Will you lay hold of that for which Jesus Christ has laid hold of you? Or will you be a coward like Spurgeon said? You're a coward. Write it down and say it again. I'm a coward. And turn red in the face. Be bold for everything else, but be a coward towards Christ. You want to be a man? Let me challenge you. Step up. Step to the plate. This crap, it's easy. But it's so temporary. And you pass it on to your kids, and your kids, and your kids. Do you know how many generations of alcoholics I come from? I can't tell you because that's all I know. And then I tell you how many child abusers, generations I come from? I can't tell you because that's all I know. Can I tell you how many generations I come from the husbands committing adultery? I can't tell you because that's all I know. Can I tell you alcoholism in my family going on and on and on? I have been set free. And I'm willing to endure the shame of the world because I have a goal in mind. I was on Jesus' mind that he would do all of this for me out of love for me. He loves you. This is why he did it. Not for any glory or praise. He did it because he loves you. And my response to that is, God, thank you. I love you back. And that is my goal for me and for every generation after me. No more will Satan have victory in my family for generations and generations. No more will I buy in to the altar of temporary sacrifice. No more. I set my eyes on the prize, on the goal of the upward call of Jesus Christ, that I might know him in the power of his resurrection. Do you know the power that resurrected Jesus Christ from the dead? If you don't, you're like, I'm that kid. I know the Bible. I've memorized so many verses and chapters. I go to church every Sunday, but I don't know that power that you're talking about. Can I invite you here today to receive the Spirit of God that rose Jesus from the dead, to receive the Spirit of God that has freed me from the anger and the bitterness that this life has left me? Do you know that power? And would you like to experience that power today? I want to ask the leaders to come on up. You guys know what we're getting set for, right? You've been here. You've done this, but this is not a game. We're going to give you an opportunity to come boldly before the throne of grace, that you might receive mercy for all that you've done, for all that you're dealing with. And not only that you would receive mercy and forgiveness, but that you would receive help in your time of need. He did not die and abandon you and leave you to yourself. He is willing, ready, and able to give you that same power to follow after him, to love him back. As a worship team plays, I'm going to give you the opportunity to come boldly before the throne of grace. And you have a human representative here, given to you by Jesus Christ himself, that has called these people forward to love you and to encourage you in your difficulty and your time of need, and to come boldly before the throne of grace with you. I invite you up this evening. If that's you, if any of this represents you, you identify with it, don't be ashamed. He wasn't ashamed of you. Don't be ashamed to get up here tonight and say, God, help me. God, free me. God, empower me to follow after you. For the joy set before you, I am that joy. I am his joy. Young people, he loves you. Come tonight.